Ravens flock, what's going on? I hope everybody's having a good day so far. So free agency in the NFL started a few days ago, and it started off with a bang across the NFL. Which is what we should have expected. Obviously, usually some of the best options available in free agency, they usually end up getting picked up within like the first 2 to 3 days, and that's pretty much what happened. Most of the best players of at most positions, they got shipped off to other teams. But one of the major dominoes to fall was Derrick Henry. The Ravens have officially signed Derrick Henry to a 2-year deal worth about $16 million that could go up to $20 million with incentives. Only about $9 million of that is guaranteed. So considering the potential of what Derrick could be, assuming he still has enough left in the tank, that is a very good deal. Granted, there's no running back who signed for like a crazy amount of money because again, the running back market over the past couple years, has just pretty much collapsed. But still, I still feel like this was a solid signing. It's not the signing I was most excited about, but it still was definitely good to see that there is some, like, the Ravens are coming through with a bit of aggression to try to correct course and try to come back better next year. I felt sorry for Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, of course. Gus Edwards, he's already gone. Obviously, he signed with the Chargers. J.K. still he's still up in the air right now. His situation's up in limbo, but I don't think they're gonna bring him back, to be honest with you. But it's just tough to see because I definitely would have wanted to see them get more of an opportunity, especially Gus. In the case of J.K., it's hard to say because even though J.K. was more talented, of course, the injuries, like too many devastating injuries to the point where it's like it almost wouldn't make sense to bring him back at this point. And also, if you're JK, you're gonna probably just want to bounce anyway because they're not gonna want to give you what you were fighting to get paid at this point. You have no choice but to try to like go out here, see if you get a 1-year deal somewhere else where you could be a feature back and really just get your career back on the right track. But I wasn't one of the people who was super hyped for Derrick Henry a few months ago when there were rumors that we were going to trade for him. I was cool with it. I acknowledge that, yes, Derrick Henry is better than all the guys that we have, but at the same time, I felt like if we were going to make a big splash move, I would have preferred Saquon. That's how I felt at the trade deadline, and that's really still how I feel right now. I would have preferred for us to go after Saquon Barkley just because of the fact that he's younger. He doesn't have the same amount of miles on him because even though, of course, Derrick Henry has dominated over the past 6 years and has, led all running backs in rushing yards in that time period and also has led all running backs in rushing attempts in that time period, he's had to carry a very mediocre Titans team. Now, they weren't always necessarily mediocre, of course, back around like 2019 when they pulled off that upset against us. They still had AJ Brown, who was still new in the league and making a name for himself, who was a dominant wide receiver. That was, even though Ryan Tannehill was never that great, that was still the peak of his career. So he still was trying to make stuff happen. And then, of course, obviously, Derrick Henry, that was also him, most likely what we're going to look back on and see as the peak of his powers. But since then, the team has just gone downhill, and he has been asked to carry more and more of the burden. So I'm sure he wants to go to a team where he doesn't have to carry as much as he did in Tennessee. But again, another reason I would have preferred Saquon is he's also a bigger threat in the passing game. But that doesn't automatically mean that this Derrick Henry situation can't work out both in the rushing attack and the passing attack. I'm not saying Derrick Henry is incapable of catching passes, but he has also had a reputation for not having the best hands and not being a factor in the passing game in Tennessee. But at the same time, I have seen clips of him make pretty solid catches, even 1 or 2 catches that was actually pretty impressive. So narratives can change, especially when you got somebody who is as good as Derrick Henry, who has the sort of resume and reputation that Derrick Henry has. And I also think that Lamar Jackson and Todd Monken can change that narrative. Like Todd Monken last year showed that he loves to draw up plays that are for screen passes. Like he almost uses screen passes to a fault. Like I lost count of how many times he did screen passes, especially to Zay Flowers. But being that Derrick Henry is a downhill runner who needs a few steps to really get going and really hit his top speed, screen passes to Derrick Henry will probably be more dangerous than screen passes to Zay Flowers. And it's not that they weren't dangerous at all to Zay Flowers, but it's just they they were trying to force it too much to Zay specifically. Like, ironically enough, anytime they tried to do it to anybody else other than Zay, it usually worked out better just because the defense wasn't expecting them to actually try to run a screen pass with anybody but Zay. So, but I do, again, a screen pass to Derrick Henry, once he gets going, it's just at that point, it's a runaway freight train. It probably will be unstoppable, especially if we really can shore up this offensive line this offseason. We're in the middle of a complete rebuild for our O-line. So, but assuming we put together a solid group, I can't see a scenario where a screen pass to Derrick Henry doesn't go for at least like 20 yards, you know? And then also I still haven't done my video yet on where Lamar needs to get better, but Lamar, as many people have pointed out, one thing that Lamar could take from Joe Flacco's book from when Joe Flacco was with the Ravens was Joe Flacco, of course, was very quick to just check down. One of the biggest critiques Lamar has had to deal with for many Ravens fans, including myself, is that he's sometimes he's trying too hard to be Superman. He's trying to force passes that in some cases are just terrible decisions, like that pass in the Chiefs game, in the AFC Championship game, where he's trying to force a touchdown to Isaiah Likely in triple coverage, and it got picked off. Like, I feel like he would probably be much more compelled to give the ball to Derrick Henry, especially on a screen pass, because, again, even with Derrick Henry being older, last year, if I'm not mistaken, he had like 5 touchdowns of 50-plus yards. Like, he was like top 10 in the NFL in yards after contact, and that's while playing on a bad offensive line. I mean, with the bad offensive line and with the bad offense overall that he had to carry by himself, he still was second in the NFL in rushing yards last year. He still has some speed, which again is an underrated part of his game because he's such a massive human being and he takes these long strides. So it's so easy to underestimate how fast he actually is. But one of his runs last year hit 21.45 miles per hour, which was, I think that was like top 5 in the NFL for anybody last season. So, and then on top of that, he could still also make people miss. So, and again, he did all this while playing on a pathetic Titans offense where he had to carry, where there was no established quarterback. And of course, there was no quarterback on that team that was even in the same universe of Lamar Jackson. So now you're talking about probably one of the deadliest possible combinations, at least on paper, one of the deadliest combinations of Derrick Henry or Lamar Jackson, or Derrick Henry and Keaton Mitchell, whoever you want to mix and match. You're talking about a very deadly rushing attack. I'm assuming that Derrick Henry will be the kind of like the workhorse for our rushing attack, which is something we really haven't done in the Lamar Jackson era. There's really hasn't been any running back who has really been like the feature back. We've kind of been like ahead of the curve in that aspect when it comes to running back by committee, which a lot of teams are doing now. So do I think Derrick Henry's gonna be like a 2,000-yard rusher like he was a couple years ago? No. Like, I don't think that's realistic. First of all, I think he's gonna still have to split carries with Keaton Mitchell when Keaton Mitchell comes back. He's still gonna probably have to split carries with Justice Hill because Todd Monken really likes Justice Hill for some reason. And then whether it's J.K. Dobbins or another player we bring in, we're still, so I still think he's going to end up splitting more carries than he's used to. But I still think this is probably going to be the first like real feature running back type of situation we have in the Lamar Jackson era. So even though I don't think 2,000 yards for Derrick Henry's realistic, I could still realistically see him getting between 1,100 and 1,200 yards, which would be the first time a running back has gotten 1,000 yards for us since Mark Ingram, which was 5 years ago now, or that was back in 2019. So yeah, 5 years ago, Jack. It's been 5 years, and in the entire Lamar era, there's only been one running back who has had 1,000 yards. And since Lamar's been drafted, there's really been no other running back to put up who to lead our team in rushing. Actually, now that I think about it, like no other running back has led our team in rushing. Even Mark Ingram, like no, in the Lamar Jackson era, the Ravens, to a fault, have leaned too heavily at times on Lamar's ability when it comes to running the football. Now, I can understand why they do it, obviously, because of the magic he has and creates, but at the same time, especially now that he's starting to get older and you want to make sure you preserve his prime for as long as possible, you have to start to try to fall back from that. He's still gonna, Lamar's gonna get off the bus and somehow just magic. He's gonna somehow end the year with like a minimum of like 500 yards. Like last year proved that. He ran probably less than I've ever seen him try to run, and he still accidentally finished the year with 800 yards. So even with the guy like Derrick Henry, I can still see Lamar finishing the year in like the 500 to 600 range. But more than anything, I just want to see Derrick Henry, assuming he's still got something left in the tank. I still want to see him lead our team in rushing attempts and rushing yards, because that would definitely be a sign that we're heading in the right direction when it comes to trying to preserve Lamar's prime for as long as possible. Now, is our running back room set? No, I don't think so, honestly. Even though us getting Derrick Henry feels like a big deal, again, this is all on paper right now. We still don't know exactly what's gonna come from this. So in my opinion, I think we still gotta have the mentality of, hey, Justice Hill's cool, but at best, realistically, he probably should stay kind of like the RB3. Keaton Mitchell, he showed massive potential, but he's coming off of like I can't remember if it's a torn ACL. I can't remember if it's a torn ACL or a torn Achilles, but either way, he had a major injury. We can't assume he's going to be back early in the year. There's no guarantee that they bring back J.K. Dobbins either, to be honest with you. I don't think they're going to. So I still think we should, on day 3 of the draft, we should try to see if we could scoop up a running back in that, either in day 3 or get another undrafted guy. That's what I think we're going to do most likely, and that's also what I think we should do. I think that would be the best way to go. Overall, I feel fairly optimistic about the Derrick Henry signing. Like, seeing it on paper, it's like you're head over heels, but then once you get like another day or two to kind of like relax, you start to remember that there's no guarantee that it can be everything we want it to be, but I still think overall it'll work out. But I'm cautiously optimistic, I guess is the best way to say it. But let me know what your thoughts are. Do you think this is going to work out? Do you think Derrick Henry is going to lead our team in running rushing yards and rushing attempts? And do you think that once the playoffs come, that they'll actually have enough common sense to put the ball in Derrick Henry's hands? Because that's another thing now. Because now this takes away all excuses for John Harbaugh and Todd Monken, because people have been letting them slide for only running the ball 6 times the whole game with the running backs, because Gus and Justice, they don't have the type of resume that Derrick has. But if you pulled some nonsense like that off with Derrick Henry playing, at that point the entire front office would guarantee be fired. But let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below.